Hello, students. This is Mr. Mormon. Welcome to the Nature of Science, lesson number 8. We're going to continue talking about the metric system. Today we'll cover length, mass, volume, time, and temperature. Let's start with length. To measure length, or the distance between 2 points, the unit of measure is the meter. The distance from the floor to a doorknob is approximately 1 meter. Now, long distances, such as the distance between two cities, are measured in kilometers. Small lengths are measured in centimeters or millimeters. Scientists use metric rulers, meter sticks, tape measures to measure length. To measure long distances, a tool like an odometer, which you'd find, which measures the distance a car travels, is another tool that could be used. Here are some common conversions that we use in science class for length. Let's do an example from the Prentice Hall Science Explorer book. The larger lines on the metric ruler in the picture show centimeter divisions, while the smaller, unnumbered lines show millimeter divisions, or a millimeter is the same as a tenth of a centimeter. Remember, there's 10 millimeters in a centimeter. So how many centimeters long is the shell? How many millimeters long is it? Again, notice it's lined up perfectly with the 0 on the scale, which on this particular ruler is at the edge, but be cautious here because the scale does not always start at the edge of the ruler. Always start with the 0 on the scale, as we're doing in this example. Now, it seems like it comes to the long line between 4 and 5. So it's between 4 and 5 centimeters. This looks to me to be 4.5 centimeters. That would be 45 millimeters. Micrometers, which have that strange abbreviation that you can see there, it looks kind of like a U with a long tail on the front of it. Micrometers are very tiny units that are used to measure objects through the microscope. 1,000 micrometers equals 1 millimeter. Another way to think of it is that you could say that is in 1 meter there would be 1,000,000 micrometers. Okay, remember a millimeter is 1,000 micrometers, and there's 1,000 millimeters in a meter, so that would be 1,000,000 micrometers. These figures come from the Prentice Hall Brief Review for the New York State Regents exam. Figure 9.2 shows a metric ruler as seen under the low power objective of a microscope. The distance across the field of view is approximately 3.2 millimeters, or 3,200 micrometers, since 1 millimeter equals 1,000 micrometers. If the cells observed on the slide in figure 9.3 are being viewed through the same low power objective, the field of view is still 3.2 millimeters. The approximate length of each cell is therefore 1 millimeter, or about 1,000 micrometers, since about 3 cells fit across the diameter, or the widest part of the field. Next, we're going to talk about volume. Volume is the amount of space an object takes up, and it can be measured in a few different ways depending on the object that you're trying to measure. For measuring the volume of liquids, we use a graduated cylinder. A ruler can be used for certain regular shaped objects that have a math formula, like a cube or a rectangular prism is the length times the width times the height. For irregular solids, you can use the water displacement method, where you measure how much water gets pushed aside by an object when you put it, you measure how much the water goes up if it fits in a graduated cylinder, or you can set up an overflow can to collect the water that overflows. Collect that water, measure its volume, and that will equal the volume of your unknown irregular solid. Now, the units that we're going to use, usually we use milliliters and liters for liquids, and for solids we'll use cubic centimeters. Now, it's interesting to note that 1 milliliter is actually the same volume as a cubic centimeter. In other words, if I had a little box that was exactly 1 centimeter on each side, it would take exactly 1 milliliter to fill it up. Now let's look at an example from the Prentice Hall textbook measuring volume of liquids. The graduated cylinder in the picture is marked in milliliter divisions. Notice that the water in the cylinder has a curved surface. This curved surface is called the meniscus. To measure the volume accurately, you must read the level at the lowest point of the meniscus. So what is the volume of the water in this graduated cylinder? It looks to me like the lowest level of the meniscus is right here, and I would read that as 62 milliliters. Many students make a mistake here when they're reading a graduated cylinder because they're so used to working in tenths of units, like on the ruler or on the triple beam balance, that they think that these little marks are tenths. But if you look at the scale here, this is 50, this is 60, there's 10 divisions in between, so each one of these is 1. So this mark here is 62 milliliters, not 60.2. It's 62 milliliters. Here are a few other useful formulas for regular shaped solids that have a formula. Here we see cube. It's length times width times height, or the area of each side cubed. Here. Volume of a cylinder, pi r squared times the height. Here's the pyramid. Here's the one that we've been using in class on the Lime lab. Volume of a sphere is 4/3 pi r cubed. I'm sorry, I said that wrong about the cube. It says here A3. That's not the area of each side cubes. Of course, that would be length times width times height. It's just in this diagram, they're using A to represent the length of a side. So it would be, one side cubed, or length times width times height, like it is over here in this cuboid or rectangular prism. It's length times width times height. In this case, they use A, B, and C. Okay, next we're going to talk about mass. Mass is a measure of the amount of matter in an object. It's literally measuring the amount of atoms and molecules that make up the object. The more atoms and molecules an object has, the greater its mass will be. The common unit for mass is the gram. Now, the unit for mass in the metric system, the gram, is actually a pretty small unit. The 1 gram is approximately equal to the mass of a paperclip. Larger masses would be measured in kilograms, which would be 1,000 grams. Scientists use triple beam balances and other kind of balances to find mass. Often we will use electronic scales as well. Okay, let's look at an example. The electronic scale displays the mass of an apple in kilograms. What is the mass of the apple? Looks like it's 0.1 kilogram, or 1/10 of a kilogram. Suppose a recipe for applesauce called for 1 kilogram of apples. About how many apples would you need? Think of an answer. If that one apple is 1/10 of a kilogram, you would need, that's right, 10 apples. Now, the laboratory balance is an important tool in scientific investigations. You can use a balance to determine the masses of materials that you study or experiment with in the laboratory. Different kinds of balances are used in the laboratory. One kind of balance, and the kind that we have in class, is the triple beam balance. The balance that you may use in our labs is probably going to be similar to the one in this picture. To use the balance properly, you should learn the name, location, and function of each part of the balance you are using. What kind of balance? This is the kind of balance that we're going to be using. So look at the picture and let's learn how to use it. The triple beam balance is a single pan balance with 3 beams calibrated in grams. The back or 100-gram beam is divided into 10 units of 10 grams each. The middle or 500-gram beam is divided into 5 units of 100 grams each. The front or 10-gram beam is divided into 10 major units of 1 gram each. Each of these units is further divided into units of 0.1 gram. Now, it's important to understand that the 2 larger weights or riders, the one in the back that goes by divisions of 10, and the one that goes by hundreds, the big one, there's notches in the beam and they have to click into place. The tiny little one in the front that goes by ones and tenths, that one just slides along, but the other 2 have to be clicked into place. And the procedure is written out clearly here. Place the object on the pan. In this case, we've got an apple there. Move the rider on the middle beam, the biggest one first, until the horizontal pointer drops below 0. That means you've gone too far. Then you move the rider back 1 notch. Again, it's got to be in the notches. Move the rider now on the one that goes by tens, 10, 20, 30, until it drops below 0. Move the rider back 1 notch because you've gone too far once it clunks down. Now you're going to slowly slide the little rider in front until the pointer stops at 0. The mass of the object is equal to the sum of all 3 beams. You have to add them all up. Now this particular balance will only measure masses from 0 up to 610 grams. If you go to the max on all the beams, it equals 610 grams. We cannot find the mass of things more than that with this balance the way that it's set up. There is actually ways that we can add extra weights to this balance so that we can go higher than that. But the way it's set up now, we can only go up to 610 grams. A couple of other important things to remember when using a triple beam balance. When you carry it, make sure you carry it by the base with 2 hands. Make sure you set it flat on your table. It can't be sitting on books or papers or anything like that. It has to be flat on the table and level. You zero it out before you start measuring. You do that by placing all of the riders at 0 and see if the pointer is at 0. If it's not, you can adjust it here with that knob. Just zero it out. Keep trying it, trial and error, until the pointer gets to 0, like it's showing here in the diagram. You do not need to copy all of these steps. Only the things that I write down need to be copied. Okay, we're almost done. Let's talk about temperature. Temperature is a measure of the average motion of molecules. You're really measuring how much energy the atoms and molecules of a substance have. The more energy, the faster the molecules move, and the higher the temperature. The metric units for temperature are degrees Celsius, and the tool is the thermometer. This Celsius thermometer shows human body temperature, 37 degrees Celsius. It's interesting to note how a thermometer works. Liquids expand when they heat, and there's a a very thin tube going up the thermometer with a reservoir at the bottom. As it heats up, the liquid expands, and the only way it can go is up the tube, so it measures a higher temperature. Okay, and finally we have time, which is defined as the period during which something happens. Our units would be seconds, and the tool would be either a stopwatch or a clock. Okay, that's it for this lesson. We'll see you in class tomorrow.